Good, Chase. Yep.
Awesome. All right, take it away, Sam.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Chase. Welcome everyone to another great AUG session. I'm really looking forward to this one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming from, and welcome to our session. So I'll just start this off since I'm doing this session. Yeah, since I'm doing this session, I'm going to go ahead and just start off in my normal Aloha style. So I've got a little song for you guys with my ukulele here. It's the Adobe Data song. So let me just kick this off a little bit. Adobe Data. Adobe Data makes me happy. Yes, it does. Makes me feel fine. Oh, the data makes me warm inside. Makes me feel like I'm gonna love it to the end of time. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Eric. I can see you on your camera. Thank you, thank you. Just to share a little bit of that aloha and of Adobe as well. So, my name is Sam Fonoimoana. I'm the founder and CEO of Datajoin, and I am also the leader for our AUGS group here in the Intermountain West. Thank you, guys. You know, we're right here. I think not everyone on this AUGS this morning is from the Intermountain West, but we're right here in Adobe's backyard. And we're very fortunate. Normally we meet in person, you know, over at the beautiful headquarters up there at Lehigh. Today will be virtual. We wanted to, there was high interest in this session. And so we wanted to make sure we could invite as many people as possible to this morning's session, which is about an objective comparison between Adobe Analytics and CJA. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you the rundown of this morning's session. We got a lot to go through. I'm super excited. And this is the rundown. So I'll just have a quick intro to the topic and to Datajoin, who's sponsoring this session. And then we'll get right into the survey. We have 50 responses in our survey that went out across the Adobe customer base with awesome insights, and we'll go through those. Then we will go to what other experts and what social media has to say about CJA. And then I'm going to end with my perspective as a marketing, you know, coming from a marketing analytics background, which I think is interesting. You know, CJA is entering this kind of new territory of marketing analytics and leaving the web analytics behind a little bit. Sorry, not leaving it behind, but moving into this new territory. And then I'm going to end with this decision process diagram matrix. For any of you who are, you know, trying to plan next year's budget, you know, if you guys are going to move to CJ or not, I think this will be a useful, helpful tool for you guys to evaluate, you know, what you should do. And so let's go ahead and jump right into it. You know, this will be really quick, but this session is brought to you today by Datajoin, which is my company. And, you know, what Datajoin does is it seamlessly pushes Adobe Analytics data, you know, to other systems such as Marketo or Google Ads, Salesforce. It also brings data from those systems into Adobe Analytics. So if you wanted to, you know, see Google Ads campaign data, or if you wanted to see pipeline and revenue from Salesforce, or if you wanted to see, you know, company name and job title from Marketo, if you wanted to see all that in Analysis Workspace, you know, Datajoin makes this really easy to do. And, you know, that's why Adobe has chosen us to be a partner, you know, for these integrations with Adobe Analytics. And, you know, when you think that Adobe owns both Adobe Analytics and Marketo, and, you know, that they would come to us and designate us as their chosen partner to do these integrations, we're really humbled and we're really grateful, you know, that Datajoin has that partnership with Adobe. So that's Datajoin. Let's jump right into this morning's session, which once again is Unplugged, an objective comparison of Adobe Analytics and CJA. And, you know, I think the reason why I named it like this with the committee is that, you know, at Summit, whether you're talking with your Adobe, you know, rep, I think they'll give you a good look at CJA, but it's going to be from Adobe's perspective. And when you're making a decision, any decision such as this, it's good to look at it, from all angles and all perspectives. And so that's the purpose of today's session, is that we can talk to many, many different people and hear what they really think. Hear what they really think. And this is an unplugged session. So AA or CJA? That's the question. That's why we're all here this morning. Probably most of you who are on this call, you are either interested in moving to CJA. Some of you have moved to CJA, and so.
Hey, can you please make sure that you're muted if you're not talking with Sam? Oh, now you're muted, Sam.
Oops.
There you go.
Okay. So this isn't the first time where we see, some sort of existing product, and then there's a newer version of the product, right? AA or CJA in this case, but it reminds me of a couple other examples, from my history. Let's go back to my childhood, and Coke versus Coca-Cola, right? I think this is back in the 80s when I was a little kid. Coke had this campaign to try to change the can to look like the one on the left, to say Coke instead of the classic Coca-Cola, right? And the market just wasn't having it, even though we call it Coke, and even though it's the exact same thing. Inside of the can, the market just wasn't having it, and they ended up sticking with the classic Coca-Cola can inside the stores. Python 2 or Python 3, right? For years, wow, I don't know how many years I stayed on Python 2.7, and just the thought of migrating over to Python 3, I have to go back to my code, have to wrap all of my print statements in parentheses, right? And that type of thing made me really hesitant to move over. But over time, I started seeing the power of Python 3 and the ease of use for implementing my favorite libraries that I use. And it was just probably 2 to 3 years it took me to switch off of Python 2.7 and Python 3. But it eventually won my heart and won me over. And I don't know a developer today who uses Python who's back on the old Python 2.7. If they did, they probably would not admit it. And then one more example, from the comic books, right? From the movies. You got Old Man Logan, the original Wolverine, on the left, and then you got the super genetically enhanced X-24 on the right. In the movie, Old Man Logan ends up winning, because he has heart. He got a little help from his friend, and also because good guys win in the movie. But I think if you put these guys, let's face it, in like a real head-to-head battle, I think Old Man Logan would have a hard time taking out X-24. So, back to our topic, like what's our head-to-head, AA or CJA? That's what we're going to talk about today. And the answer to that, I'm just going to quote one of my finance professors from back in college. It depends, right? It totally depends on a few different factors. It depends on if you're already on AA, or if you have, if you've been on AA for years and you've got 10 plus years of historical data in AA. So it totally depends on if you have some history with Adobe Analytics or not. It also depends on your focus. Are you focused on just doing web analytics use cases and staying there and really maximizing that web analytics? Or are you looking to venture outside of the web analytics realm and look, how that crosses over into the customer journey analytics realm? How that's going to trickle into middle of funnel, how that trickles into bottom of funnel, right? And following the customer beyond the website, to the final deal. So as we go through today's presentation, I just urge you to, keep these questions in mind. Like, it really depends on what your company is, and what your focus is. Okay, so let's head over to the survey. We had 6 questions that we've been getting responses now for the past few weeks. And these are the 6 different questions right here. We'll go through them one by one, but just really quickly, what do you think are the pros of CJA versus Adobe Analytics? 2, what are the cons of each solution? 3, what are the pros of Adobe Analytics versus CJA? 4, are you currently on CJA? 5, if not, what stops you? And 6, any other passionate thoughts on this topic? So we've had about 50 responses to our survey, to this study. And what we'll do is we'll go through each question one by one. And our team has gone through and has categorized each of the responses into about five or less answers. That way it's easier to show the charting and reporting. And then we picked out 2 responses of people who are on CJA and 2 responses of people who are not on CJA, so we can kind of get a little bit more detail and a little bit more context. So let's go ahead and dive into question number 1. Oh, question number 1, what do you think are the pros of CJA versus Adobe Analytics? So this is, yeah, this is it right here. Oops. There we go. So overwhelmingly, 31 people chose, they want to go beyond web data. They want to see the end-to-end journey. They had answers around that. Then a distant second place, Adobe priority, newer features. So if you notice, like at Summit, all of the newer features that are coming out are almost exclusively on CJA and not you're not within Adobe Analytics, and so that's important for a lot of people. That's going to have that support from Adobe. We've got real-time personalization and analysis. We've got data edit capabilities, such as historical backfill, historical deletion. A lot of this is really hard to do on analytics, but it's easy to do on CJA. You've got unlimited variables, and then you've got faster integrations. And so, but I think it's safe to say most people are going to CJA because of the name of CJA, right? They want to see the full customer journey and get those analytics and really go beyond the website. So let's look at a couple answers from people who are not on CJA. The first one, the CJA allows you to report on anything, including AA. Being able to pull in data from any system and use CJA, which is basically the workspace interface, is awesome, right? So this idea of being able to expand beyond the website and still to have that familiarity of analysis workspace, which CJA is basically just analysis workspace, but snapped on top of AEP. Great. Second, CJA has product analytics, generative AI, and being able to integrate other data sources, i.e. BigQuery, and improve data architecture with AEP. CJA has many new features. So once again, at Summit, and if you look at the release notes every month, you'll see these new great features, product analytics, which they revealed on stage and in Vegas, right? That's available only exclusively on CJA. Let's take a look at the feedback from a couple of people who are currently on CJA. Easier to integrate multiple data sources and manipulate the views of the data, especially data deletion, right? I mean, I think, yeah, all of us can probably relate to that, where we had an error in our export. We didn't mean to do it, and we wish we could take it back. This is really easy to do now on CJA. Let's see, CJA allows you to connect online and offline data. AA is only online data. CJA is getting all the cool bells and whistles in Adobe product development, as we've talked about. Okay, great. So that's our first question. Let's move on to our next question. 2, what are the cons of each solution? And this is what it came back. So 19 people voted CJA is more complicated to set up and to maintain. 13 said CJA is expensive. 9 people said that the AA data model is limited, where they had answers that that spoke to that. 6 people, CJA is still missing some features. AA is expensive. AA is the orphan for Adobe Analytics, right? It feels left out. If you're on our last session with Frederick Warner, that's what he was talking about, how AA is definitely feeling a little left out these days. And then CJA does not handle ID resolution. Now, there's only one person that put that there, but I wanted to put this on there because whoever put this answer, they understand one of the key nuances to CJA, that you're not going to be able to stitch together any customer journey unless you have common keys across all of your data sources, and that takes ID resolution, that takes ID mapping, ID stitching, whatever you want to call it. But you can't do a VLOOKUP without a common key. You can't do a SQL join without a common key, and you cannot stitch in CJA without a common key as well. And I think he's saying that CJA does not handle that out of the box. Okay, So first, detailed response of someone who's not on CJA. CJA setup requires deep expertise of AEP. So that's kind of the con of that. If any of you have dealt with AEP, it's, with the namespace and the schemas, it's not the most friendliest interface to deal with. If you're a data engineer, if you're used to, working with data analytics. On the Adobe side, Adobe Analytics is still a cookie-based reporting tool. So it's definitely, limited dimensionality versus CJA. CJA is more costly and another tool to maintain while not containing any of our historical analytics setup. Adobe Analytics is not keeping up with new journey-based data requests requiring hacky solutions. Now, for the people who are on CJA, complexity of implementation. So this is someone who's already been through it. It's complex to implement, according to this response. CJA is very native, lack advanced features. I'm not sure, maybe they meant CJA is very, young. It's still, it's still lacking in some of the advanced features. Although we'll talk about some of the latest things that are hot off the press with it in just a bit. Okay, question number 3. What are the pros of Adobe Analytics versus CJA? Ease of use and implementation, more mature solution, larger knowledge base, better features such as pre-processing, marketing channels, activity map, export hit data, data ingestion, and lower cost. So let's see, here's some of the answers. Already established, simpler to set up. It integrates well with all our tools and works consistently since integration multiple years ago. We can continue to maintain the platform, find experts and solutions for almost any ask, even if data is slightly degraded. So sounds like this person, they set up they set up some custom integrations, it sounds like, several years ago, and that's working consistently enough for them to not necessarily want to switch over to CJA, even if they, admit that the data might be slightly degraded. Let's see, and those that are on CJA said that it's easier to get started. The AA is easier to get started. There's more out-of-the-box support for web-specific use cases and contexts. AA is matured. Short answer, but yeah, I think we would all agree AA has just been out for a lot longer, and they've got that big knowledge base. Okay, question number 4: are you currently on CJA? Out of the 48 that made it in time, 42 are not on CJA, and 6 of them are on CJA. Okay, question number 5: if you're not on CJA, what stops you from migrating to it? So let's take a look at these answers here. So migration complexity was the #1 reason, followed closely by cost. It's another license if you want to run that kind of side by side with Adobe Analytics, and not to mention the implementation costs on top of that. 6 people said that they are already looking to migrate. So, and then 5 people said that AA is more familiar to them, and there isn't anything significantly better on CJA that would make them want to do the migration. And 2 people said that it's stuck in the decision-making process for their company. Okay, so this is someone who's not on CJA. The cost, period. The fact that it's a completely separate implementation, and that I would have to run in parallel in order to get a historical data record. Moving to CJA is not simply an upgrade. Also, every segment and calculated metric will have to be converted manually. Nothing will be brought over automatically. And here's someone else. We are going to migrate in the near future. I don't think it's a choice not to migrate. So these people have their mindset, they're moving forward. This one said, convincing leaders to switch, invest to migrate, which I think is a good point. We're going to definitely talk about this, towards the end of the presentation, that, I think leaders will question, hey, you already have Adobe Analytics. Like, why do you need all of this, right? This extra cost and effort to be able to migrate to this newer version. And our final question, any other passionate thoughts on this topic? Most people, they didn't really have any passionate thoughts other than that they want to learn more. and they're excited to learn more about CJA. And then we've got, these other reasons. Don't forget the AA user base. I think a lot of people are afraid that they're going to get left behind. A lot of people are excited for the future, excited about CJA. There's people that are worried about the high switching costs of moving to CJA. And then there's just a couple of just really positive, loving people towards Adobe. They just said, I love Adobe, basically, in their answer. So, which we do. So that is, oh yeah, let's take a look at a couple of the responses. So being able to personalize along the entire customer journey is one of our main goals currently. And I'd like to understand if CJA can be helpful here without sacrificing on features that we use from AA, right? So personalization is a key priority for these guys along the journey, and they don't want to lose any of their functionality that they love in AA. Let's see, here's another response on the last question. Even though there are many benefits to move to the new platform, there are high costs to do so. And until those costs are mitigated, both in the work to transition as well as some on the financial end, it will be a long road to get customers to transition. You really make sure you not disenfranchise those who are still heavy users of Adobe Analytics. It is still a very relevant solution, which is true. I mean, I think you can see from the survey, most people are still on Adobe Analytics and not on CJA. The platform is solid, but we really need the frameworks and toolkits to make implementation valuable, i.e. ID management. So this goes back to my common keys, thought. Like, you can't stitch the data together unless, somehow the UCID is also in Salesforce or, inside of Marketo, and you can then, do the joins or do the stitching after that. And CJA, just speaking with the product product managers there, they just don't have that built in currently to the product to handle that part. And then finally, here's the last response. AA is the original. So this person loves AA, and yes, it is the original. And that is the end of our survey. If you guys have any thoughts or questions or comments, you feel free to put them in the chat. We will go over them at the end. Once I'm done with the presentation. So let's move on to the next section, what experts think. Frederick Werner, I've been talking a lot to him. He's helped our group. He presented to our group last month. And as many of you know, he's super passionate about analytics, and he's been keeping up. I think he had like an 8-part blog about, Adobe versus customer journey analytics. And so I've been talking a lot to him, wanted to make sure I get his feedback on this presentation. And, this is what is interesting, because he has generally been opposed to customer journey analytics. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, until last week. I mean, until May 27th, right, when he posted this. And, this is now the name of his blog on his website. It's finally time to migrate to Adobe Customer Journey Analytics, which, I went and I reached out to him on Friday after this dropped. And, just having this presentation in mind, and I said, bro, like, what happened? Like, you changed your tune. And he said, yes, and let me explain why. And so we had a great conversation. And so for those of you who haven't read this article, I encourage you to go to his site and check it out. But, these are some of the key takeaways from his latest article, is that, in general, everything AA can do, CJA can also do it, and it can do more, right, with all of these new product features. Before, it was more like AA, can't do, CJA can't do some key things that we want to do on AA, such as marketing channels and whatnot. But CJA could also do other things that AA can't. Well, now, he's changing his outlook to more of everything AA can do, CJA can do, but we could also do all these extra features that we have. There's unlimited dimensions and metrics. It talks about that in the article. It talks about how, this shift in, this paradigm shift from the visitor profile, view to a person profile view. And then I really think this is the key thing that really changed his mind just in talking with him. And if you read the article, you'll see it. But this new feature that just came out is still, I think it's technically in beta. So it's not available in all instances, but this derived fields It overcomes a lot of the past limitations, including, lack of referrer type, marketing channel, exclusion rules. All of that now can easily be addressed with this new derived fields feature, which just went live. I think it was last week in beta. So this is what it looks like. If you want to create a derived field, it's awesome. I mean, for those of you who have a SQL background, this is basically like a super powerful case, statement builder where you can create any type of new field based off of whatever logic you want off of the other fields or records, right? So it's super powerful, bringing some of that SQL power, right into CJA. Okay, great. So let me just move to the next section. Let's talk about some of the social media response that we've seen, on this topic. Sometimes a little controversial, but hey, this is what I've been able to find on LinkedIn. So let's go through all four of these. We'll start here upper left. So Marco P. CJA has been a disappointment so far. Don't expect data from different Adobe sources to match in CJA. Once again, this was 7 months ago. He didn't give much detail, but that was his comment. Let's move over to Cleve's comment. This is on a thread. This all comes from a thread. These top three that's found on the Adobe Analytics Enthusiast LinkedIn group. This is a thread where someone was asking about the differences between Adobe Analytics and CJA. So let's read Cleve's answer, specifically the part that I underlined. CJA is different enough that it would be a massive project to retrain all our users on CJA. Just the thought of that effort was enough to make me have little to no interest in moving to CJA in the short to medium term. And so, I mean, I kind of get where he's coming from. I will say that, once again, CJA is really just analysis workspace. So I think it's going to look and feel very familiar. If you're a heavy analysis workspace on AA, I think it's going to look and feel very familiar. But I do agree that, underneath the hood, like all the data preparation, with the connections and the views and the filters, all of that is a little bit different. So I can see a little bit where he's coming from, but I'll probably push back a little bit on that. It's so different. It looks pretty similar. And then we've got Frederick on the thread. That's exactly right. Well summarized. You will find a lot less usage of Tableau in favor of Adobe Analytics with this superior tool, which, I'm coming from a data marketing analytics background. I'd probably push back a little bit on, against Frederick on that, but I see his point. Adobe Analytics will be supported for many years, so there's no rush to opt for customer journey analytics, especially marketing and traffic sources are still better covered in Adobe Analytics. If you look at the date of this comment, it was 7 months ago, well before his blog that I just showed you with the derived fields. He'd probably like scratch out that last line, right? And then we have this comment just yesterday from Trevor. Trevor gave an awesome session at Summit on the features of CJA, but this is just hot off the press just yesterday. Trevor posted this on LinkedIn, congratulating Derek Tangren with the latest mind-blowing Adobe Analytics feature coming to CJA this week, which is derived fields, which is what we've been talking about. And this is a quote from one Adobe customer. This is not only the best feature ever released to CJA, but this is the best feature ever released by Adobe Analytics, period. So that's a very strong endorsement of this new feature that was just released. And once again, it's in beta, but if you're interested, just talk to your, if you're on CJA and you're interested, to talk to your rep about getting access to it. Okay, great. So that's what I've got from social media. Okay, we are nearing the end of the presentation. Now let me just toss in the marketing analytics perspective. My background is in data engineering, data science, and marketing analytics, and it is similar to web analytics, but I definitely feel like there are some differences. Let me read the definition on the Coursera website for marketing analytics, because I think it's a good one. Marketing analytics enables marketers to measure, manage, and analyze marketing performance to maximize its effectiveness and optimize return on investment, right? So where web analytics might be focused a lot on, on the bounce rates and on conversion rates, marketing analytics, was made to track all the way to the return, which to me, means revenue, closed deals if you're B2B, and being able to track that all the way through. And so, that's been my background. So I ran the marketing analytics teams for companies such as Domo, such as Ancestry.com. And, at Domo, I built a stack that looks similar to this. So Domo is a data visualization company. For those of you who don't know, it's similar to Tableau, Power BI. So even though Domo was a data company and they had a tool that could technically do some of these, as a marketing analytics function, this is the stack that me and my team built over there at Domo. So we would, write our own connectors to Google Ads, and we'd funnel it into our data warehouse, which I think we were using a Redshift at the time. Today would probably be Snowflake. We get all of our clickstream data from analytics, from the data warehouse API or from data feeds, and we pump that into the warehouse. We get all of our marketing automation data. We get all of our CRM data, and then with that ID mapping, we also did the work to be able to stitch together all of these sources at an ID level. So we would know, hey, these ECIDs in Adobe Analytics is this contact ID in Salesforce, right? So we could actually stitch together that 360-degree view of the prospects and of the customers. Once it was centralized and all stitched together in the warehouse, then we would have a reporting layer, and that would be either Tableau. For us at Domo, it was obviously Domo. Power BI is super cheap option as well. It doesn't look that good, but hey, it's really cheap and it's still very powerful what it can do. So we'd have this reporting and visualization. We'd have forecasting and modeling, right? Where we'd have our teams build out these lead scoring models on the leads that we could feed back to the sales team, and give insights to the marketing teams on what's working and what's not from the campaign perspective. And then the bonus was activation, right? If we could, say, hey, these are the highest quality leads, and somehow notify the sales reps in Salesforce, right? This is what our marketing analytics function did, back at Domo and at many other places that, that I worked for. And so, if you look at this, CJA looks a lot like this, right? It looks a lot like these marketing analytics stacks. CDPs, they also look a lot like these marketing analytics stacks, which BI teams, and marketing analytics teams have been building for over 10 years already. You've got internal teams that are already trying to build this. For those of you who are trying to take, CJA and try to get it pushed through, I'm sure that there are some, your marketing analytics team is speaking up and saying, hey, we already got some sort of efforts underway that look a lot like this. And so all of this to say that, with CJA, Adobe is leaving the web analytics territory. It's not completely leaving it behind, but it is entering a new territory. It is entering, marketing analytics territory. This is from my point of view and all of my experience. I'm like, wow, CJA is taking Adobe out of web analytics where they are the king, right? And it's taking them into a new arena where, they don't have as much experience yet. Like this is my view of it as a data engineer, as a data analyst. And so you'll just have to keep that in mind. And I think I'm pretty sure Adobe, they already realized this, but they're going up against teams who have been trying to build a similar type of stack for the last 10 to 15 years. Which leads to my final part of the presentation, which is the decision process. So this is for anyone, who's evaluating CJA. This is my recommended process on how you should approach it. And once again, it's not trying to favor any side over the other. I'm just trying to look at this as someone who knows web analytics, as someone who knows marketing analytics, and as someone who runs a business, selling data integrations into B2B enterprises, right? This is my recommended flow chart currently for CJA versus Adobe Analytics. So let's just start right here on the upper left. And you got to ask yourself the question, are you already on Adobe Analytics? If the answer is no, you go straight to CJA. That is the superior product. It has all the features and more, as Frederick says in his blog. If you are on CJA, then you got to ask yourself some other questions. The next question to ask is, do you want to combine AA with other data sources? If the answer is no, then I would say for now, just stay on AA. Like there's no reason for you to move if you're just mostly, interested in web analytics, for now, until they make that migration a little bit easier. If you are interested in combining other data, then you got to ask yourself the next question. Are you more interested in insights, on the customer journey, or activation across the customer journey? If you're interested more on activation, then currently in its state, there's better activation options on the Experience Cloud than on CJA AEP, right? On Experience Cloud, within analytics, you can create a segment, for example. You can publish that to the Experience Cloud, and you can activate that in Adobe Target. You cannot do that yet inside of AEP and CJA. So I would just recommend, for activation purposes, just stay at home on AA. And then, in terms of getting that data, like you still want to combine it with other data, you can do your own integrations if you want. Just use the APIs, use your own ID mapping, or you can use, companies like Datajoin. Like my company will also make that easy for you to do it, and just stay right home on AA. If you do want more insights, then, I've colored these decision nodes orange because they're a little bit tough. These are going to be barriers for you, right? Do you have a strong internal BI and analytics team? You got to ask yourself that question, because if the answer is yes, then you are almost, you will most definitely run into some resistance from them, because once again, they've been trying to build these things out for the last 10 to 15 years as well. If you do not have a strong, internal BI analytics team, are you willing to deal with the switching costs, right? Which is, once again, you've got to deal with the historical data migration. You've got to deal with the extra cost, right, to be able to pay for CJA and that implementation on top of your analytics, right? You'll probably have an overlap for at least a year until you feel comfortable that you're completely migrated, over to CJA. If you are willing to deal with the switching costs and you don't have an internal IT team that's going to stop you, go for it. Just get right on CJA and take advantage of all the new features. If you're not willing to deal with the switching costs, but you still want to combine data, with other sources, you could try to, hack it together yourself through the APIs, or you can use a company like Datajoin to do that for you and stay right on AA until these switching costs come down, right? If you do have the BI team, but if you have a strong Adobe team, and are you willing to go to battle? That would be the next question you have to ask. If you do have the strong team and you're willing to go to battle, and you're willing to deal with the switching costs, then go for it. Just go on CJA and take advantage of all the new features there. If you don't have a strong Adobe team and you think you're going to lose that fight, then, I would probably say just stay on Adobe Analytics. If you're not willing to deal with the switching costs, I would say stay on Analytics. So this is my decision process. And so this is coming from a data engineer who knows web analytics and marketing analytics, and selling into B2B enterprises, that process as well. So this is what I recommend as a decision matrix. So that is the end of the presentation. If you want a copy of the full survey results, just go ahead and send me an email at sam@datajoin.com. I can get that to you. I don't necessarily want it just floating around freely on the internet, but I can send it directly to you. And if any of you guys are interested in, taking a test drive, we've got free tiers on Datajoin. That's a QR code to be able to do that as well. But I will stop there, and we could open it up for any questions. Let me stop sharing, and then let's take any questions that we have. Chase, did you see anything come through the chat?
Yeah, Sam, there were a couple questions on the chat, so if you want to look for those.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there are a lot. Let me scroll to the top here. Let's see. Will this deck be available after the call? Yes, it will. If you want the survey, just email me directly, and then I can get you kind of that full full results. Let's see. Navin Kumar. I want to include my machine learning data. Are there best practices? I note my customer don't want to use AEP, just pure CJA for machine learning prediction, data ingestion. Yeah, I mean, if you want to combine any data, like you're not going to be able to get around like not using AEP, just to answer that question. So there's no pure just pumping it into CJA if you want to combine with other data. So you'll have to go through AEP for that. Let's see, Jyoti Sharma. The complexity of moving from AA to CJA. Will I lose any AA data? Yeah, you just have to work with your, if you're working with an Adobe services team or your internal team, like just make sure that you've got that migration correctly. You have plenty of testing in place to make sure that you're not losing any of the data. There's no guarantees out of the box, Jody, is what I'm saying. Like you have to be vigilant and make sure that you're doing that migration properly. Why are we not adding some journey analytics to understand user flow in AA? Why are we not adding some journey analytics and understand user flow in AA? I mean, I think that's a good question. That's probably more for the product managers, for Trevor and those guys. But like we've talked about in the presentation, like everything is moving to CJA. Like Adobe is throwing all their chips into CJA, and all the new features will be there. Next question from Ashley McEntee. With the survey and experts, was there differing opinions based on usage of AA versus CJA depending on industry, or even more generally, like usage in private versus government sectors? Ooh, I like that question. We didn't ask any questions about company type or any firmographic data, so I don't really have an answer to that question. Like, yeah, I don't think we'll know based off of our survey. Francis Harris, we're looking to switch from AA to CJA for HIPAA reasons. From someone who has switched, can you give the top things we need to be on the lookout for? Well, that's a good question. There wasn't anyone, once again, we don't know like if any of these are healthcare companies, or the industry. So that'd probably be like a follow-up survey that we might be able to do. Let's see, Ricardo Malisani, very nice clue. Worth to know if different answers, points of view come from different industries. Yeah, no, this is good. I wish I would have known this. I wish you guys would have told me before. Then I would have added a question in there for that. Yeah, we don't know anything about the industries or the company size. Let's see. Jody Sharma, can you share the deck? Yeah, as Chase mentioned, this will be on YouTube, this recording, and we can share it. Let's see, last question. We redirect to brand PWAs and then lose sight of the customer journey. With CJA, how can I stitch Adobe ECID to brand analytics, UUID ECIDs, and have the complete end-to-end user journey stitched? Yep. There are different ways to do that. That's the whole notion of ID resolution. You can collect IDs that are on the web page from the different cookies, for example, and you can store those somewhere. That's kind of my answer off the top of my head for Rupkata. Rupkata, if you want to have a more detailed conversation, I'm happy to do that offline. And then let's see, we had another question just pop up. Is there any formal training provided from Adobe while migrating to CJA from AA? That is a good question. I mean, for me, as I was going through it, I've done internal work, for Adobe Corp on CJA. I didn't go through anything other than the tutorials and just working closely with some of the guys on the Adobe team. So I don't know if there's, that was probably over a year ago. So I don't know if there's any new formal training that's made available by Adobe. I'm not sure the answer to that. Okay. Thank you everyone so much for joining our session today. We hope this has been helpful. Yeah, we'll go ahead and make these slide deck, these slides available to the group, everyone who attended. And then once again, if you want kind of the full survey, just shoot me an email at sam@datajoin.com, and then I'll go ahead and just send that over to you. That way you can digest everything on your own. So thanks. Yeah, Chase, I think that's all. I just thought that's all we've got this time.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Like I said, this video will be posted on the YouTube channel that I linked in my first message. So make sure to subscribe there to get those updates, and look for the future events. Thanks again, y'all.
Thanks, guys.